Good morning, folks. Welcome back from your unexpected snow break. I'm sorry I'm not there with you today. I'm at county office today and tomorrow. So be nice to your substitute. Make sure you act like you know I would expect you to. Feel free to email me if you have any questions about anything you would do today or tomorrow. Today and tomorrow you're going to be learning about ancient Rome. Um, and then you're also going to be doing some test review because your test will be Wednesday when I come back. Okay? So you're going to have to work hard while I'm gone and make me proud. So today's agenda, first, second block. You guys already did your bell work when you came in. Um, so now we're going to do some notes, and then you guys are going to have a booklet activity. If you finish your booklet activity early, you can start on your study guide for the test. Third block, you did your bell work, you're going to do notes, and then you have a document-based question essay that you're going to work on. And also, if you finish early, you can start on your study guide as well. Okay, so let's get started. If at any time today you guys need to pause this video to write down your notes, then you or the substitute can do that, okay? So don't write anything on this first slide. This is just to give us a little bit of review from the stuff that we talked about last week. So last week we talked about Greece. We know that Greece was founded about 3,000 years from us, so about 900 BCE. It was on the Mediterranean Sea, which is important because it allowed them to trade. It gave them an avenue for transportation. Greece invented democracy. It invented direct democracy, which is where everyone votes on everything, which is pretty important. Major city-states were Athens and Sparta, and the great leader that we talked about from Greece was this guy named Alexander the Great, who built an empire from Greece all the way to India. He had a little city named after him called Alexandria that was down here in northern Egypt. Greek religion was polytheistic. Some of you learned about the ancient Greek religion for your mythology project. Greece was known for advanced math and science. And they were also known for the arts, so from theater and drama to sculpture to poetry. Okay, so Greece was a very advanced society. Today we're talking about Rome, which has a lot of similarities to Greece, and we're going to talk about why that is. So this is the part where you start writing. Rome was founded around 750 BCE. So the Romans had several legends about their founding. The one that most people know is this story about these two boys, Romulus and Remus, who, according to the legend, were raised in the wild by a wolf. And then they decided to start a kingdom. And they fought over who would get to name it, and Romulus won, and so that's why it's called Rome. Other people believe that after a war in Greece, people from Troy, which was this little coastal city in Greece, set out to find a place to rebuild after their kingdom was ruined by war. And so they made it to Rome and decided that they were going to build a new civilization there. So we don't necessarily have a definitive account, but that second theory is probably closer to the truth. So Rome is important because, like Greece, they had access to the Mediterranean. So Greece is right here. And then Rome is right over here on Italy. So just like Greece, they were sort of in the northern part of the Mediterranean Sea, which gave them access to the Mediterranean so that they could trade with northern Africa and with the rest of Europe and with the Middle East. Okay, so that Mediterranean is really important. The earliest kingdoms in Rome were built around the river Tiber. So why would they want to build on a river? Water. Okay, so we've talked about that a lot, that all of these early civilizations depended on water so that they could grow crops, so that they could trade. So being on the Mediterranean isn't good enough because the Mediterranean is a sea. It has salt water, so you can't really grow crops with salt water. So their source of fresh water was a river that ran right through Rome called the Tiber. So around 500 BCE, Rome is going to transition. Rome is going to transition from a kingdom to a republic. Okay, so a republic is a democracy like what they had in Greece, but Greece had a direct democracy where everyone votes on everything. Rome has a republic, which is where you choose people to represent you, and you can remember that because the REP in republic are like the REP in represent. Okay, so republic is a kind of democracy where you pick people to represent you. They wrote a constitution, which is a document that describes what their laws are. They had a Senate, which is an elected legislature. It's a group of people that you vote on, and then they make laws. And then their government had a lot of departments that controlled different things, like the war and the economy and money. So if all of this sounds familiar, it should. We take a lot of our ideas about government from ancient Rome. So the reason that Rome is really important is that they came up with a system of government that us and a lot of other civilizations still use. Okay? So, what allowed Rome to grow in power and importance? So, they were, just this little city on the side of this peninsula on the Mediterranean. So, what allowed them to become super important? So, they shared the Italian peninsula, which is this thing that sticks out into the Mediterranean. So, they shared that Italian peninsula with other groups of people, including the Etruscans, who taught them the Greek alphabet and Greek systems of math and engineering. Okay, so you know how with Mesopotamian civilizations we talked about how writing was so important? So the Romans learned the Greek alphabet, which was sort of the most advanced system of writing at that time. And then we talked about how the Greeks were really good at math and science, and that's what allowed them to build the Parthenon and make all these huge marble buildings. Um, so the Romans learned all that from the Greeks. Okay, so they had all this good technology that they kind of stole from the Greeks, and you're going to see Rome do that a lot. They kind of borrow from the people that they conquer, or from the people that they trade with, or the people that they interact with. They steal stuff. Okay, so their location made them a prime location for trade. So they're in the middle of the Mediterranean, so they have those water paths, and then they also have rivers that can take them up into Central Europe. And then they also had strong military and government that allowed them to conquer people around them. So they could conquer people, and then the government could rule those people once they took over them. Okay, so if you want to paraphrase this, that's okay, but make sure you get that they used the Greek alphabet, math, engineering, that they could trade, and that they had a strong military and government. So if we look at these two maps, this first one is Rome around 500 BCE. So sort of right as the Republic is getting started, right as they're really becoming a developed country. Rome at that time is just this little red section right here, okay? And then within a few hundred years, they expand from just being that little red section to being everything that's outlined in blue here. So basically everything that touches the Mediterranean belonged to Rome. And that goes all the way up to the British Isles, to what's now England and Scotland, and all the way down to northern Africa, to parts of Egypt, to Morocco, and all the way over to Turkey and Jerusalem. So a lot of the major centers of the world during that time belonged to Rome. So much of what we call the known world, um, the parts of the world that people sort of knew existed during this time, were under control of Rome. And the parts that they didn't own, like China, they still had a major influence on because of trade along that route that we talked about called the Silk Road. So as Rome expands, they need more and more powerful rulers to govern all that land. So unfortunately, with a republic, they didn't feel like they had a strong enough central ruler to be in charge of this huge, huge empire. So the republic is going to be replaced by an empire around 100 BCE. So they now have extremely powerful rulers called emperors. So this guy is a guy that you might have heard of called Julius Caesar, who's a really powerful Roman emperor. Okay, so Rome is going to transition from being a kingdom, just like this little village with a king on the edge of this peninsula, to a republic, which is a little bit more powerful, to an empire, which is a huge global power. Okay, so this is where your notes stop for today. What I'm going to do now is go over what we're going to do for second block, and then I'll go over what we're going to do for third block. So third block folks, sit tight. Second block folks, listen up. So you don't have to write this. These are just instructions. So for second block, you guys are going to do a foldable or a booklet. So there are some booklets on the front table. Your sub will pass them out. Those are going to go on into your notebooks as your left side activity for today. You're going to use your textbook, and the page numbers are listed on the booklet, to learn more about the culture and achievements of Rome. You may need some art supplies for this activity. Those are in boxes on the front table. Make sure everything that comes out of the boxes goes back in the boxes, okay? Do not walk off with my art supplies. Um, And then there's one page that talks about the hierarchy in Rome. I forgot to print that in the booklet, but it should be on the whiteboard. Okay, so you'll need to draw that in. So fill out all the pages in the booklet. If you finish early, work on your Unit 2 study guide. Okay, so second block. This is where you guys can stop the video and get started on your activity. If you need to go back and play the video over, you can. If you have any questions, ask your substitute, okay? So good luck, be good, email me if you need any help. So second block, stop here. And third block, let's get started. So third block, you guys are going to work on a document-based question. Some of you may have already done these in your English classes. I think those of you who have had Miss Hutchings have probably done this already. I'm not sure if Ms. Pierce does these, but you guys will see these in your more advanced humanities classes in high school. So we're going to get some practice doing these this year. Expect to see a lot more of these over the course of this semester. So a document-based question, as the name would imply, is where you use documents to answer a question. You combine evidence from the documents with your own knowledge to answer a question. So you have to use both what you know and what the documents tell you. So the one that you are going to answer today is, how have the cultures and accomplishments of ancient Greece and Rome influenced modern society? So basically, what was the modern impact of these classical civilizations? So to use the documents, you're going to read the documents in the packet that you're given. You're going to answer some guided questions. And then you're going to group the documents into what we're calling buckets. So each of those buckets is going to be a subtopic that helps answer the question. It's definitely okay to use the same source in more than one bucket. Try to do this, okay? So use the same source in more than one way if you can. You won't use every source in every bucket, but you should have more than one in each. So if you're going to make a point, but there's only one source out of like 10 that backs up that point, then that's probably not a strong enough argument, okay? You may not be able to use all the sources, but as a general rule, you need to try to use at least 3/4 of them, okay? So let's do a quick sample one. So let's say we were doing one about Mesopotamia. So how did the ancient cultures of Mesopotamia and Egypt develop into successful civilizations? And let's say these are the sources that they give you. So a primary source about the Nile, a map of Mesopotamia and the Fertile Crescent, a quote about Egyptian pharaohs, an excerpt from the Code of Hammurabi, a blueprint of a pyramid, and a blueprint of a ziggurat. A ziggurat is a Sumerian or Mesopotamian temple that's similar to a pyramid. Okay, so we have to use these sources and what we already know to talk about why Mesopotamia and Egypt were successful. So if I look at these sources, I see 3 big topics. So one is that they can grow food, because you need food to be a successful civilization. We have 2 sources that talk about that. Also, you need strong leadership. So we've got 3 that I see that talk about that. And then writing. So we talked about that writing allows you to have records for trade. It allows you to codify law. It allows you to codify your religion. So there are 3 that talk about that. You'll notice that source 4 and source 5 are used for 2 different topics, okay? So then once we have them sorted, we come up with a thesis statement. So my thesis looks like this. Mesopotamia and Egypt were successful because they could produce a surplus of food, they had strong leadership, and they were able to use written language. Now, your essay and someone else's might not look exactly the same. For this one, maybe I could have talked about religion, maybe I could have talked about technology, maybe I could have talked about trade. Okay, but these were the trends that I saw in the sources that I was given. When you do this, make sure your thesis lays out the order of your essay. So I'm going to talk about the surplus of food first, I'm going to talk about leadership second, and I'm going to talk about written language third. You should always end with your strongest argument. So your assignment, you're going to read your documents, you're going to answer your questions, and you're going to fill your buckets. There's a graphic organizer that looks like the buckets in your packet. When you're ready, you're going to start writing your essay. You can do this in your notebooks. You need to include, for each of your points, support from the documents, and you can use phrases like according to document 1, or in the map of whatever, or in the image of whatever, okay? So you need to cite which document your info is coming from. So use support from the documents and your own knowledge from class to support each of your points. Try to finish your essay today. If not, finish for homework. Tomorrow you're going to do some peer editing and some test review, okay? So your assignments for today are to do the packet and to do your essay. If you have any questions, ask your sub, and you can also email me. Okay, have a great day, folks. Make good choices.